Good Sunday morning. Welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker. John North is off this morning. We welcome the president and CEO of the Knoxville Chamber, Mike Odom, in that post since 2019. It's great to have you with us because we're going to talk business, not just here, but globally. We're glad you're with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always great to be here.
Let me introduce our panel. Eddie Smith is a Republican, and he used to be a state lawmaker. Eddie, good morning.
Good morning, John.
Don Bosch is a Democrat, runs his own law firm.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's talk, Mike, about what has made big news this week, and that is tariffs. You have 2,200 plus members of the Knoxville Chamber. What are your members telling you about the impact on their business?
There's a lot of indecision right now and trying to figure out what the end game is. And when that happens, people typically don't make investments. And so that is what we're hearing. We do a quarterly survey of manufacturing, retail, and service organizations across the community. And so we're in the middle of that right now, and we're waiting, but the early results have been people are very confused with what's going on.
And so do you get a sense that they're just waiting for some certainty, or what are they saying in terms of what they want to hear from the president or the administration?
The certainty is the goal, is what is the are we trying to accomplish here? When do we think we can get to that point? How is it going to impact from a local perspective, not just the national perspective? So that seems to be the big message that we're receiving from our investors.
One other piece of this from the administration is the president is insistent upon bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. We do have some manufacturing in East Tennessee. Explain what the climate is here for that and your vision of that future.
The tough part about this is trying to build a manufacturing facility in a year or two is just impossible. It's going to take multiple years. Just to get through the design phase will take 12 to 18 months. So to say, hey, this is going to be a really quick manufacturing back to the U.S. is going to be very tough. Now, we do have manufacturers who may expand here. So automobile manufacturing is big here, obviously, or the OEM part of that. We have different uses for batteries and other things that are done. So they may see expansions versus, hey, new facilities being built from the ground up.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Well, and let's just say with manufacturing, because I know one of the things that we look at, because you said it does take some time, is it depending on how long, especially, we can kind of discount most of the rest of the world. Let's just focus on China. The longer that this goes on with China, as manufacturers move out of that, it really does start to kind of shift things around globally over the next couple of years. So kind of talk about, how that might affect some of the companies that we've got here in this area as things like that kind of start to shake out.
Well, that's a great question. And you look at what COVID did to the supply chain, and a lot of companies since that time have been trying to rethink the supply chain, how to protect themselves in case something of that magnitude happens again. This is going to throw that into chaos as well, is because you're going to have to change suppliers. But what's happening now is, if you may say, I'll go from China to this country, but that country now has a 45% tariff increase, well, now you got to shift it again. So I think there's a real desire. Obviously, the administration has said we'd like to move things back into the U.S., but can you do it quickly enough where the companies who are here now and are working and doing business can actually feel the positive effects of that? Or is it just say, hey, where am I going to make these investments? Because right now, I'm not sure.
So the Chamber has done a lot of great things over the years, and your predecessor, Mike Edwards, and what you've done over the last few years. But in this time of volatility, and it's literally daily right now, and daily because of one person, President Trump, unfortunately. But what can the Chamber offer its constituency to sort of calm or stopgap economic problems they may be having during a time where we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow?
Right. There's not a lot we can do in terms of being that stopgap. What we can continue to do, though, is reassure them that this market, through not only, for instance, COVID or recessions and other downturns, we have stayed pretty steady. And a lot of that is because we're fairly diverse. We have a very good business climate. We have sophisticated business leaders. So we just have to keep reminding people of that. We also just have to remember that this time is going to pass, and there's going to be some kind of end to the chaos. And once that happens, we need to be prepared to start moving and ready to go at that point.
3 years, 7 months.
Who's counting? Don Bosch is. Yeah. All right, let's shift to a little more local news because you're on the move. The Chamber is moving from its Market Square establishment where it's been for years now. Explain why that is and where you're headed.
So it's been 20 years. So we've been in our space 20 years. And Don, you mentioned Mike Edwards and the leadership of Mike when he was the president and CEO of the Chamber, as well as the city leadership, the county leadership, and the board made some really smart decisions to invest in Market Square. You've seen Market Square. Not that we were the only catalyst, but we hope we played a role in that in the renovation or the reclamation of Market Square. We have a couple different strategic reasons why. A big one for us is we've changed over the last 6 years. Just through attrition and change in strategy, the size of our team has shrunk significantly. My understanding is when we did make that investment in Market Square, it was to try to be a catalyst down there. So our thought is there are other places in our community where we say, hey, maybe we can be a change agent in that place as well. So that was the kind of impetus for doing it. As far as where we're going, we're not going to talk about that right now. So we are in a contract in a location. For us, we have a large meeting room in our space that we use not only for our board meetings, but for events and programs. We have to find a space like that in a new facility, and so that makes it a little bit, the market becomes a lot more small when you have to do that. So we hope to have an announcement here in the next 30 to 60 days as to where we'll be.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. We're going to talk about the new 5-year strategic plan that is out from the Chamber and what that means for you at home when we come back here on Inside Tennessee. We're back on this Sunday morning talking with the president and CEO of the Knoxville Chamber, and I'm drawing your attention to this. It's part of the 5-year strategic vision released by the Chamber recently. And let's just go across the top board. Raise the average annual pay 30% in Knoxville by 2030, lower the poverty rate in that same amount of time by 25%. So that gives you a sense of where the Chamber is looking to go, and you can see the other priorities: seeking 7% growth in 25 to 50-year-old population by 2030. Mike, let's dissect some of these goals and what you see are the keys to completing them, and let's start with that annual pay increase of 30%.
So for us, our number one metric is average annual pay. If our mission is to drive regional economic prosperity, and for people to be prosperous, they need to have more money in their pocket. They need to have opportunities that allow them to do it. We have to have the skills and the training to take advantage of those opportunities, and so on and so forth. And so over the period during the pandemic, we saw a 30% increase in average annual pay in Knox County, which far outpaces anything we had seen in the decades prior to that. And so our goal is, through prosperity through innovation as a strategic vision, to try to replicate that without a global pandemic doing it. At the same time, so just if I may step back for a moment, every $1,000 that we can raise that average annual pay in Knox County, $1.8 million in new economic activity is started. And so then you can see why it's so critical for us. So if we raise that average annual pay, the domino effect across the county, across the region is huge. Flip side of that is on the poverty side, we also did see a 25% decrease in poverty in Knox County during the pandemic time. We want to replicate that as well. Now, the more we can raise that average annual pay, the more the poverty will go down. So they're kind of part and parcel with that.
Well, I was going to say, isn't that largely driven by the minimum wage? Because when you're hovering that poverty line, many of those folks are what we call working poor, and they're making, what is it, $7.75 or $7.25 an hour still. And how do we deal with that, at least from your organization? I know you don't make those laws and you can't set minimum wage, but how can you advocate for businesses to raise it on their own, or for governments to mandate a higher wage?
One thing on that. So for us, very few jobs in Knox County pay at or even near minimum wage. So we're already above, way above that naturally, organically. And so, but we do have areas where we do see, from a competitive standpoint, employers are going to need, if they want to compete regionally, statewide, they're going to need to raise compensation. And so we talk to them privately and say, hey, we've looked at other markets. This is what the same thing costs, or same position pays, I should say, in this market. We look at peer groups across the Southeast to show them that data. But in terms of minimum wage itself, very few positions within Knox County still pay at that minimum
and
wage.
what do you attribute that dramatic increase in growth? 30% is a lot to grow over COVID-19. What was the catalyst for that?
It was consumer demand. And so in products and services, the demand was such that, and it was very interesting to watch from what we do from our perspective, in that you had people needing more employees. We had people who left the workforce pretty significantly, females, people at the edge of retirement said, hey, I'm just going to retire. So our workforce actually shrunk while there was more demand, and so naturally, just basic economics, when supply and demand, the salaries went up.
And one of the things that's not talked about a lot that was just about, right before the pandemic is the drive to 55, making sure that we have an educated workforce, because the more educated the workforce, the higher the wages, the more high-paying jobs you can bring to the area. What's kind of on our 5-year plan within the chamber that you all are working on towards that goal?
So we have worked significantly in workforce development and what we call talent retention and attraction. And a big part of that is to ensure that we have, whether it be adults, underemployed adults, or soon to be high school, college graduates, or even middle school kids, making sure that the skills that they are developing in their education, in their training, align with what the skills that employers are going to need. The other piece of that too is that we have to ensure that we are exposing the kids to say, hey, this is what's coming, so these are the things that you need to learn. And we talk a lot about if you don't have some post-secondary education, so essentially just anything after high school, it doesn't necessarily have to be college. It could be a certificate, it could be an apprenticeship, it could be an associate's degree, any of those, you're not going to be able to compete in this new world economy as we continue to evolve.
And talking to the kids, what's the Chamber's role with Knox County Schools and the 865 Academies? Because if you're waiting till they graduate, it's too late.
It's too late.
So we're trying to get them in middle school and high school. So what's the Chamber's role with Knox County Schools and the 865 Academies?
I'm glad you asked. So we have been very involved since day one in the development and then the launch and now the continuing support of 865 Academies. Our role is twofold. One is we're providing the kids and their parents the information that they can make good decisions in terms of what they want to study. The 865 Academies does a really nice job of giving them opportunities to find where their interests are, and then our role is to say, hey, this is what's coming. When you graduate from high school, this is what the jobs that are going to be in high demand, this is where the compensation is going to be, and this is the skills that you're going to need to do it. So that's the first part. The second piece is we're getting the business community engaged in the 865 Academies so that the kids can get not only internships, which we're very high on, but also have business people come into the schools and talk to the kids, do these day outs where they get to go out and tour and understand what the workers do. We talk a lot about not every kid needs to go to college. That's absolutely true. But if we don't give them a path to be able to have a career, a fulfilling career, a prosperous career when they do graduate, then we're not doing our job. And so that's why we're so involved in the 865 Academies.
We're going to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with more of our conversation with Mike Odom, the president and CEO of the Knoxville Chamber. Stay with us. We're back on Inside Tennessee and focused on the Knoxville Chamber and its 5-year strategic vision called Prosperity Through Innovation. And I just want to draw your attention to the top line there and the one on the far right. Increase the 25 to 54-year-old population 7% in Knoxville by 2030. Mike Odom's the president and chamber. Let's talk about that specifically and why that demographic is so valuable to you.
It is the key to economic progress. If the 25 to 54, we have deemed them the growth demographic. And because they have such a big part of the growth of your economy. These are the folks who fill jobs, who start companies, who buy homes, have children, all of across the spectrum that really drive an economy. And for us, since 2010 through 2023, we've only grown that demographic 5.6%. Actually, when you look at, so the three demographic groups are the 0 to 24, 25, 54, 55 plus. We have grown the 55 plus more so than we've grown the other two since the 2010 census. We are becoming a retirement community.
So on that, we talked in the last segment about the 865, drive to 55. If only there was a large university in the city where we could, try and keep some. But what is the Chamber doing in connection with UT to try and retain those students in our community to help on that front?
Great question. So one is, in looking at the jobs that they want, as well as the jobs that we need for the future, we've asked them, and they have said they're doing this, is to increase their enrollment in their engineering program by double by 2030. We've asked the same of Pellissippi State Community College. We need them to double that. Part of that needs to be computer science. So the three pieces that we really are focused on in order to keep that demographic. You mentioned UT. Obviously, as everyone knows, their enrollment is reaching all-time highs. So just basic math should tell you that our numbers should be growing, and they're not. So we're educating them, graduating, and they're leaving. So we want to focus on one is the talent. So we've got to have the jobs, we've got to have the skills that those jobs need, and we have the jobs the kids want. We've got to have the infrastructure. So we've got to have the what we call the civic furniture, a term we stole from Governor Bredesen. It says we've got to have the things that make them want to stay. And then we've got to have the business climate where they feel like this is where I can grow my career, where I can be successful. And so those are the three parts that we're focused on.
So I'm going to jump in here on the Eddie show for just a second. And what if you're looking at high school students or younger, or maybe college students, what are the markets you're telling them, hey, Knoxville, Tennessee has got this going on right now, and if you're interested in this, start studying, start preparing for that. What's this right now?
So for us, we are trying to create what we are calling a computing-focused economic environment. That doesn't mean it's just a bunch of computing companies. What it means is that we want jobs where a computer, where the technology, the digital piece of this is at the center of what they do. So even healthcare. Healthcare is becoming more and more focused, whether it be data-driven analytics or the robotics that they're using, those kind of things. Those are the jobs that are coming. So the U.S. Census Bureau said by 2035, computer and information technology jobs will grow faster than any other occupation in the country.
So that's what we want.
That's what we want.
What's here right now?
Well, we do have some of those. But a big part for us is what people, right or wrong, refer to as the big three. So we have a lot of government with TVA, ORNL, and UT. We also have a lot of manufacturing and distribution. And those are great. And we don't not want to disparage them. But again, looking at the Census Bureau data, manufacturing jobs are actually going to decline in the next 10 years. Automation is going to take over. We have the potential in Knox County to lose over 80,000 jobs to automation by 2030.
Talk about one of the things that's really exploding is around logistics, and I know the Haslam School has that. We've got a company, Axle Logistics, here that is exploding. Kind of talk about what you see in the logistics world.
So it's a double-edged sword. So absolutely, the supply chain management program at Tennessee is great. It's a top 5, top 6 program.
Those kids are all going away.
You stole my thunder, Don. That's
good.
But Axle is the odd man out in a good way. They are continuing to grow. We don't keep very many of those students once they graduate from UT because we just don't have enough jobs that need a 4-year degree in supply chain management or logistics. So they're going to places, Seattle with Amazon. They're going to Dallas with PepsiCo, Frito-Lay. They're going to the Midwest with J.B. Hunt because those are where the jobs are. So what we're trying to do is marry that and say, okay, we want to keep those. Let's create more supply chain jobs if we can. At the same time, let's boost up other areas of UT's degree programs that we do have those jobs and where we continue to grow.
If you had to say one thing in 30 seconds to a student at the University of Tennessee, why to stay here, Don't go to Austin. Don't go to Seattle. Don't go to Raleigh, Durham. Stay in Knoxville.
Kind of dating yourself a little bit. Those are passé places now. Go on.
But they're still growing.
Yes,
they may be passé, but they're still growing. What we tell students right now is you can build not only a great career, a great lifestyle in Knoxville, and you can do it in a place that will support you with a high quality of life, a low cost of living, with the opportunity to continue to grow into the future.
Mike Odom, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for breaking down your goals for 2030.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Don.
You bet. We'll be back with our talk around right after this. We're back on Inside Tennessee. We're going to recap our conversation, and this is a little segment I like to call What's the Gossip? Why? Because our old friend Dennis Francis used to always call us and ask us that. Don, let's start with you. When you focus on what we said with the Chamber President about what this community needs, what's your takeaway about what it does need to draw the people you said we want to keep, 25 to 54?
It's interesting. For years, I taught at the law school, and I often had students from all backgrounds, all ages, all ethnic groups, and I would often ask my African American students, where are you planning on practicing law? And very rarely do they say, oh, we're staying here. And I asked, why won't you stay here? Because the Bar Association here in Knoxville has tried to keep young lawyers of color, young lawyers of different ethnic backgrounds, and they really struggled to do that. And they almost without fail would look and say, there's nothing for us here socially. And so while that's not necessarily the Chamber's forefront and mission, they have been active in trying to promote or co-partner with things, but I think what we need are, if we want to keep diversity, which is a strength of any community, despite the fact that that's sort of a taboo word because of our president right now, but we've got to have opportunities for everybody, and social opportunities, economic opportunities, job opportunities, cultural opportunities, and if we can focus on that, I think we'll even be a stronger community than what we've become over the last 30 years.
Eddie, the Chamber President talked about civic furniture. Next week, we're opening a new ballpark downtown that's not just going to host baseball and soccer, but community events across the year. Is that the kind of thing that Knoxville needs more of?
I believe it is, because it will bring people downtown and it will add to that diversity that Don was talking about, because you'll have different types of people. I mean, I can remember when the Lady Vols, were in their heyday. It was bringing all of those people in that might not be the normal men's basketball crowd, really helped to kind of make our city and county better. We've got to have more things coming in. We have the same events from the Visit Knoxville. We've got the Bassmasters coming back, but we need some of those other events that will bring people in, that will help bring people to this community, so that there are those diversification of events within our community for the betterment of people, because people want something to do with their families, and that's really where they look to get them.
Only about a minute left. Eddie, what should we watch for in the wrap-up of the legislature this month?
The next 2 weeks, everybody hold on to your wallet really tight. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but it's, they're getting ready to enter the budget process, and that's when things really start to kind of move very quickly. They go into what's called flow motion, where something can go from a committee to another committee to the House floor all on the same day. So it moves very quickly over the next 2.5 weeks.
Don, what are you watching?
That they go home so they can't do any more damage.
That's what you're hoping.
Every year.
That's your April wish.
It is.
All right.
Unfortunately, maybe a May wish at the rate they're going.
Don, Eddie, we appreciate the conversation. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you right back here next week. We'll have more conversations about the economy in East Tennessee with an expert on tariffs and trade policies and logistics. We hope you'll join us then.